So, House of the Dragon Season 3 is finally here. We're 3 episodes in as of recording this, and we're going to break down the first 3 episodes, give our thoughts a little bit. I hope you guys have been enjoying it as much as I have. I think this is an excellent season so far. I can't wait to see where it continues to go. So, the way this is going to work for just in general when we do these little breakdowns, we're going to go episode by episode. I'm going to try to keep it as short as I can with each episode while still discussing sort of the most important bits / my favourite bits, things like that. And full context, I have not read the books, okay? I have not read the books. I do not know what happens. Please do not spoil it for me in the comments below. I will block, delete and report you to the authorities. So yes, bear that in mind when we go through this, because that's something I think, at least I hope, is somewhat of a unique perspective from a film critic talking about Game of Thrones, because I feel like a lot of them have read the books, so when they're discussing it, it's not, these things, the shocking moments aren't really a shock, right, because they know they're going to happen, whereas I just know, like, the names of a battle, or for example, that dragons eventually die off, because I've seen Game of Thrones, right? So I very much know pretty much what I've learnt from the show and various bits and bobs. And in general, anything else I've really learnt about what happens in Game of Thrones, I would say is from watching breakdowns. So people like Grace Randolph or channels like that do the episodic breakdowns that I watch. They obviously tease, because they know what's going to happen, they tease what's to come. And that gives me some context to stuff as well. But overall, let's talk House of the Dragon. And what better place to start than the Season 2 finale? I'm joking, of course. It was episode 1 where we finally got the Battle of the Gullet. But this was the Season 2 finale. Everyone knows it. It's okay. Now, I actually really enjoyed House of the Dragon Season 2. I know lots of people did not, but I've always been someone who does enjoy a long build-up, provided the payoff for the build-up is worth it. And in my opinion, this payoff has been worth it. I really have enjoyed these first 3 episodes so far, and the Battle of the Gullet did not disappoint me for all the hype it had. Because remember, I didn't know what happens. All I knew is, oh, Battle of the Gullet. People are excited for this. Let's get ready. And it was very good. I can see why people were excited for it. It was a little short. I think the whole battle was, what, maybe 20 minutes, half hour of the actual episode. But then again, most of the episode was revolving around it, so it still felt like a big event that was the episode. So, let's discuss it. So, of course, this is the Season 2 finale we all wanted. We all deserved it. We finally got it. And like I said, it did not disappoint me. I think there was so many great things here, from the amazing visuals on display to the really, I think they've really leveled up the visual effects this season. I don't know what the budget for this show is nowadays, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's practically a blank check, as long as they deliver the results, right? They're like, take what you want, just please give us some wins, particularly while we're in this process of the Paramount merger. Just give us victories and money. And it seems like they're doing it. In particular, one visual that I really loved in this episode during the battle was once they had begun boarding ships and they were actually doing the hand-to-hand combat with the swords, and there was this visual of the blood and the water both being on the ship deck, and you know, people were slipping around in the blood as they're fighting so viciously, and I thought, wow, this is peak Game of Thrones. Peak Game of Thrones. I loved it so much. I thought that was excellent, and that was definitely my favourite shot from the entire first episode. And there was a lot I loved about the first episode. So, also, we finally get to see dragons properly. We're really getting a good look at dragons this season, which I'm very glad about. Obviously, there's reasons why we don't see them as much in Game of Thrones, but I'm glad that they're making up for it here. I think they're making up for it. I do not like this dragon. I do not like it. I forget its name. As I said, I haven't read the books, I'm sorry. But this dragon peed me off. I was like, man, get it together. Like, I understand you're not trained or anything, but from what we've established, they do have somewhat of a conscience, right? Like, they know roughly what they're doing. They just tend to need to be tamed or sort of have that connection with their person, Dragon Tamer, Dragon Rider, I forget the name, to, really be an effective asset. But the other dragons were great. They had a great time. They were really good asset, at least until the end. But yeah, the dragons looked great. As I said, the VFX have really leveled up this season, I feel like, and for just a TV show in general, I feel like this is incredible. It's like, whoa, this HBO Max show has incredible production value. Wow, it looks better than Supergirl CGI. Ooh. Let's not. So yeah, great visual effects. And there was also a lot of really interesting other bits and character moments in this episode. Let's talk about Rhaenyra. So Rhaenyra, if you don't know, is my favourite character from the show so far. She might actually be my favourite character from Game of Thrones in general. I don't know. I do love Arya Stark. I think the thing that made me love the Starks so much was, as weird as it sounds, the Red Wedding, but then that sense of wanting to see that vengeance for after it really compelled me to their house, and that's when I started like researching a bit of lore about their house and things like that. I was like, I like these people, and the revenge was satisfying. It was satisfying. One of the few good moments in season 7 or whatever it was. But yes, so I love Rhaenyra. So you can imagine how frustrated I was when, after she gets locked in the room by her own son, no less, she didn't even really do anything. She didn't punish them properly, at least in the episode. Obviously, we will talk about episode 2 and 3. But worst of all, I feel like her failure to really enact her power in that moment ultimately led somewhat to her son's death. Obviously, Jace died for many reasons, and the biggest one, I do believe, was arrogance. That's the same reason he locked her away in the first place. He thought he could do a better job, and he could not. But hey, he tried. And he went out, with his curls, all looking good, he was like, yep, this is me, see you later. And it was a classic moment. We'll talk about it a bit more shortly. But right now we're talking about Rhaenyra and how stupid she is to have not had I would have had every one of those people at the least exiled. But quite frankly, I would have had them, put some weights on them in the ocean. How dare they disrespect authority like that? That was shocking to me that she didn't do anything about that. I mean, she just sort of, cried and stabbed her robes. And don't get me wrong, it was a great character moment, but just from a perspective of watching it, you're like, go, get up, get off the floor and fight. Thankfully she does, as we'll discuss, but it's taken a while to get there. I think it's a good choice going forward in the other episodes that Rhaenyra does begin to get her backbone and stuff, because I think if she hadn't by now, people would have just got fed up. They would have been like, come on, you either want this, you want to play the game or you don't, right? So that's Rhaenyra, and then of course we have Alicent. Ooh, incest. Okay, Game of Thrones loves its incest. I love George R.R. Martin, but sometimes I do wonder if it may be worth having his hard drive seized. Maybe just a quick look, just to be on the safe side. But yes, Alicent is pretty much having a battle with Rhaenyra for who's the most cursed. Who has it the worst? And honestly, I'd say particularly by episode 3, Alicent is not doing the best. But she tries, and she of course sends off her son, who is in love with her. I don't know what that was. We don't know if it was like an in love thing or something, but that was one of the most disturbing things of the entire show. I was like, oh god, here we go. Game of Thrones is back. So yeah, she sends her son off to make way for King's Landing for Rhaenyra to come in, because of course with him gone, the dragon's gone, and it's just overall much easier for them to get in. Ooh, so she's making moves, but are they the right ones? We'll have to find out. I'm very excited to see. I have a feeling, because remember, I don't know what's going to happen. I think they will. Obviously, they come back in some way, shape, or form, because we've seen Game of Thrones. But I'm waiting for that moment. I feel like something's going to click down the line, whether it's this season or not, where you're like, oh, that's what she's been doing this whole time. I hope anyway. To be honest, I don't know if she's going to survive this season. She might not survive this season. Oh, that's a shame. But, you know, it's Game of Thrones. But yes, she's having a very tough time, but she's trying her best. She's doing what she can to try and make as good of a time for herself as she can, and for her former childhood friend, which I like. I've always really enjoyed the relationship between Rhaenyra and Alicent. I think it's really fascinating. I think it's something that I've never really seen explored in like anything else. This idea of these really childhood best friends, and let's be honest, these days maybe more. It seems like there's a little bit of unrealized gay in there, right? There must be, as Amanda the Jedi likes to say, it's like unrealized gay. There's just a little bit of it. And yes, she's trying to make the best she can of it, and I understand where she's coming from, but it feels like she's just not, her head's not in the game. I feel like she does have a lot going on, and maybe she doesn't really want to be in the game anymore. Maybe she just wants a peaceful life. That's not exactly something that comes easily to characters in this world, right? So it would make sense. Maybe she's just doing what she can so that she can live peacefully, comfortably, and enjoy the rest of her life. That would be a nice ending. Too bad it will never ever happen. So yeah, Alicent's doing that. Meanwhile, Daemon is really proving himself, I think, as Rhaenyra's ultimate weapon asset, right? He's so loyal to her, which is incredible, because for the most part, I feel like Rhaenyra's never really appreciated properly the loyalty that Daemon has for her, and the amount of times he could have gone, but he's always stuck with her. And, you know, Daemon himself, for all his, you know, brutality, is very loyal, and he has a very big respect and honor for loyal people. He pays loyalty back well, which is why a lot of people want to be his ally, and in turn now want to be Rhaenyra's, which is clever on Rhaenyra's part. She is using him, but that's what you do in this world, right? You use the people to your advantage, and maybe at the same time make some friends. Hopefully. But it is interesting, the Daemon situation. Because part of you is always on the edge of like, is he just gonna one day snap and be like, I want this crown? Because he's come close to it before, right? But I don't know. He does have that really deep bond with Rhaenyra, which I think, as far as I'm aware, it doesn't seem like he has with anyone else, right? Like, he has a slight bond with certain people he's met throughout his time, but for the most part, I feel like Rhaenyra probably feels the closest, like, home to him, and, like, peace. So maybe that's also why he's so dedicated to fighting for it, because he wants that peace for himself. Interesting. I like that. I think he's a fascinating character, but like I said, I don't know if this is going to happen, but based on like everyone's hints, I feel like he's going to die this season, or at some point at Harrenhal. You know, this seems to be the big thing. Everyone's like, oh, later on he's warned not to come back to Harrenhal, and I'm like, is he going to die? Is it? From what I'm gathering, and do not tell me if I'm right below, but just tell me if this is a cleverish guess, okay? I feel like Aemond and Daemon are going to have a battle, and Aemond is going to win that battle and kill Daemon, but ultimately that battle will probably begin to be the downfall of Aemond, because it takes such a toll on him going forward. And, you know, it would make him enemies of a lot of people, because like I said, Daemon is very, very loyal. He loves loyalty, he repays loyalty, and I imagine many of those people in turn repay that loyalty for him. Ooh, I love this show so much. So, pretty much the last bits we want to touch on for episode 1, so this video doesn't end up being ridiculously long, is the battle. The end of the battle, when it finally feels like, whoa, things have kicked off, and it does feel like a disaster, right? It doesn't feel like, wow, we've won. It feels like this is just the beginning of worse to come, right? And of course, Jace dies. Now, I really enjoyed this death scene. I kind of saw it coming. Even though I didn't know what happens, the fact they focused on him so much, right? And his dragon already got harpooned like once or twice. And first of all, why the hell did he not have anything to cut these ropes on him? I mean, I get he's riding a dragon, so he's not expecting to do hand-to-hand combat, but surely you should, particularly as the Queen's son, you should have that prepared. Well, future Queen's son. But you should have that prepared, right? You should have at least a dagger, something, just for anything. There's like a basic survival tool. People take it out for hikes. Honestly, that frustrated me. His death could have been avoided, but I guess he was arrogant. That was the point I felt like they were really trying to make with his death, was it was ultimately his arrogance that led him to that. And slightly Rhaenyra by allowing him to even get away with that shit in the first place. But hey, it happened. And it was a very classic, brutal Game of Thrones death. Quick, done, oh my god, roll credits. But I think it worked well. I liked it. I think they needed something like that to let everyone remember that we're watching Game of Thrones. It may be a different title, but it's Game of Thrones. So now, episode 2. Now, we are going to go through this one a bit quicker, and episode 3, because I don't have as much to say, but they're still really good episodes. Really great episodes. I've loved this season so far. So good. So, the big thing, of course, episode 2, Rhaenyra takes the throne. Woo! I mean, I loved that it was like a party on social media. Like, Popbase tweeted it out as if it was an actual event happening. They're like, Rhaenyra now has the throne. And you're like, oh, okay. Although, I did hate them because I saw that first thing in the morning before I watched the show. I was like, damn it. But it's fine. I'm kind of getting used to getting things spoiled for me. I just try to avoid it when I can. But it's difficult. So Rhaenyra took the throne, and what a moment it was, right? Walking in the blood. She sat on it, and it was just wow. It was a very powerful moment. I got not emotional in a sad way, but just in a this is really cool. I love this. Like, it was great. I really enjoyed it. And Alicent and Rhaenyra, we just said Alicent's not really doing well. Get up off the floor, girl. But I mean, she's getting somewhere, kind of. Right? Like, the alliance is for the most part working, and she's still alive, which is better for like half of her family, right? Half of anyone knows in this world, if they're still alive, they're doing better. So she is getting something out of this alliance, and as I said, I do feel like she probably has things planned or something up her sleeve to come back. But overall, I do feel like this alliance is just so one-sided at the moment, right? Like, it's helping Rhaenyra, which is great, but what is it really doing for Alicent except keeping her alive and getting her son killed? Because that's obviously going to happen. I don't know when, but it's going to happen. Yeah. Alicent's a frustrating character to me, because I feel like she started off quite smart, but they've almost made her really passive lately, and I don't know if it's a deliberate choice. Obviously, without spoiling stuff that hasn't really happened yet, please do feel free to tell me in the comments below if, like, it is true to, like, in the book, maybe she does become more passive and stuff, but it just seemed like a choice to me. It doesn't seem like she fights much anymore for her place, right? And the fall of King's Land. This was great. Now, obviously, they set the stage for this in the episode before, when she sent her son away, and what a plan I mean, they took this thing with ease, and I really loved the contrast between barely killing anyone there and oh my goodness, Aemond. I think it was Aemond. I'm so sorry. Blackout mode. It's very hot in the UK at the moment. We're not in a heat wave again yet, but we're about to be, so it's warming up. But yeah, she cleared the way for that, and it worked really well. And that contrast, I think, between their taking of it and Aegon's conquest was excellent, because he was, killing everyone. He was so angry and vicious, whereas King's Landing seemed so much more tactical, right? It seemed like very, very precise, tactical. This is what we're going to do it, and it worked. Brilliant. Really brilliant. And the reason as I said, feel like Daemon is going to maybe die this season, like I said, I don't know, is because, one, I do feel like we're seeing the effects of battle and his time throughout the world, starting to catch up to him. He's not getting tired, I don't think, but I feel like it's starting to weigh on him. He's feeling the weight of the lives he's taken, and the fact that it never seems like this battle is ever going to end. It's just going to keep going and keep going and keep going, and which is really, I think this is brilliant on Matt Smith's part as an actor, because I think he does a really good job with this, and everyone does a great job, but I think Emma Darcy and Matt Smith are by far and away the standouts of this show. as they should be. They're pretty much, I'd say, obviously there's no main characters, right, but they are kind of the main characters. So that's great. And of course, all I know in terms of what's going to happen is that somehow Aemond and Daemon's fates are intertwined, and it's something to do with Harrenhal. And that's why when he was warned never to come back, there was like, oh, he's going to die, isn't he? Here, Aemond's going to kill him there. But, you know, it's interesting. And since there's witches around, who knows what could happen out of that, you know. Game of Thrones has some really interesting magic. I always love the magic stuff in Game of Thrones, because it has this really cool vibe of being still quite realistic, but still being fancy, which I really like. I think it works really well. I wish there was a bit more magic in Game of Thrones, to be honest. I think they could have a little bit more. It'd be kind of cool. But that's not really what it's about, right? It's about the politics and the intrigue and espionage. Betrayals, not quite about magic. So then, Rhaena. We haven't really talked about her much, and that's because, to be honest, I feel like she needs more to do. She's not really doing anything much, right? But I guess they're setting seeds for something that will come on later, so I don't really have much to say about her, except someone needs to give her some dragon training lessons. I mean, don't get me wrong, clearly this dragon is a problem. I think that's obvious, but she just doesn't seem to be able to control it at all. I don't think she'd be able to control any dragon. Not just this one. I don't think she'd be able to control anything based on what I've seen. She seems like she's not in control of herself, pretty much. She doesn't know what she's doing. So that's interesting, and maybe she will get mentored a bit on that going forward. So that would be nice. Also, Mysera, I do believe, is trying to position herself for revenge against Damien. I know she's putting on this act like she forgives him, but I don't think she does. I mean, it's a weird though, because they do have a bit of a bond, right? But it's not quite as good of a bond. It's just a bond, Dave. It's almost like a trauma bond. So then, episode 3. Yeah, well, I told you, we've got to move at a quick pace. Rhaenyra's got the throne now, so what's happening in episode 3? I really like this episode because we do get to see, in my opinion, Rhaenyra really start to step up, which has taken 2 seasons, right? So it's about damn time. Like I said, I feel like if she hadn't taken this level up by now, many people would have just been sick of it. They'd be like, yeah, let's get someone else on the throne because she ain't doing shit. But she's doing shit now. She's doing shit now. So Queen Rhaenyra, she's finally making moves on the throne. She's doing stuff, she's getting out there, and she stops crying all the time. She still cries a lot, but not all the time. Alicent, however, like I said, I do not see what she is gaining from this alliance other than just being kept alive. Like, she's literally a prisoner now. What is the point? And, you know, her son's about... Anyway. For some reason, Alicent seems to like it. Like I said, maybe they are more than lovers. She's like, yes, lock me up in your dungeon, Rhaenyra. Thank you. Maybe it is Game of Thrones. It's definitely better than her son. So, Alicent's a prisoner, and I did like the conversation she had with Rhaenyra, where she reminds Rhaenyra that Viserys, as great of a person as he was, because he had flaws, but he was in the world of Game of Thrones, as people go, he was a nice person. But he had a very unrealistic, and I'd say idealistic or optimistic view of the world, right? He always tried to look for the good side in things, even when it was to his own detriment, and that somewhat led to his downfall. So it was really interesting to see Alicent remind Rhaenyra of that, and I don't know if Rhaenyra fully... It seems like she took the advice on board a bit, but she still refuses to kill, kind of. Like, you know, that's not choice. It's one thing to, you know, if you're going to take the morality stance and say, well, I don't want Rhaenyra to kill because I want her to be a different type of queen for this story. But this is Game of Thrones. They need to kill. It's just part of the package, I think. Also, I think the tension was really good in this episode. Because obviously there wasn't a lot of action in this episode, but what I think Game of Thrones has always done really, really well is it almost uses dialogue as action, right? It uses it to build the tension, it uses it to set up later action, and it just does dialogue and the political intrigue of it all in a way that really does build tension in a really good way. And it really worked here. In particular, I really liked the theme throughout this movie. I don't know, movie? I like the theme throughout this episode, which I guess was sort of a rats versus whatever the opposite of rats is. um, but you know, that was clearly the main through line through this episode, and I really liked it. I really liked the shot of Rhaenyra in the throne with the rats in the throne. I thought that was so both symbolic and just a genuinely really cool visual aspect. But obviously it's very symbolic because not only does Rhaenyra 100% have rats running around in the castle because they killed the rat catcher. I bet they didn't think of that. They're like, well, damn it, we need to find a new rat catcher. Where's the Pied Piper when you need him? Except he needs to lure the rats instead. But why don't they get like cats? Are there cats in Westeros? I can't remember. If there's cats, just get some cats for the castle, right? But yeah, so there's actually rats in the castle, but also figuratively there's rats in Rhaenyra's castle, because there's always people plotting against her, right? There's always people plotting against whoever is in power in Game of Thrones. And Rhaenyra is no exception. Who's it going to... I reckon it's talking about multiple different people, but obviously I don't know for sure. And this is why I really enjoy this season, and maybe why I enjoy it more than some others do, because I guess if you know what's going to happen, it's not as exciting, right? But I don't know what's going to happen, so I'm like, who's the rat? Who is it? I have my suspicions, but I'm going to hold on to those for a bit longer. I don't want to reveal them yet. So then, we have the rat dinner. Excellent scene, and I actually thought this was a very timely scene as well. I'm guessing it's from the book, because they don't really go too far off book, they don't tend to. Please do feel free to tell me. But it just seemed really timely of a metaphor and just funny, right? So obviously the rich nobles are having their oh so lovely dinner, and they're talking about, what is it they say? They had this really sort of horrid quote, which was basically talking about how the poor are like sheep. No, something to do with sheep and rats, right? I can't quite remember it off the top of my head, but they essentially compared poor people and just the general residents of Westeros to like peasants and rats, and they had no use really, which is so incorrect as well. And a good leaders would realize that there is value in even the lowest sectors of their society, because it all builds up to form a functioning society, right? So that was really great. And then it turns out they were being fed rats. I loved it. It was such an excellent metaphor. It was so on the nose, but in like the best way possible, right? Like, I just really loved it. I thought it was brilliant. Loved it. So then I'm trying to move as quickly as possible. So Daemon does not want allies, but Rhaenyra does. I can see both sides of this. I understand Daemon's position for a few reasons. One, they have dragons, right? They have so many dragons that he's like, we don't really need allies. We can just go take over whatever we want. But Rhaenyra is thinking more in the long term. And it's all well and good to seize power, but you have to hold on to it after you seize it as well. That's the key. In theory, it's surprisingly easy to actually take the throne, right? Because all it involves is basically killing. But actually holding on to the power of the throne, that's a whole different ballgame. And I think that's why Rhaenyra wants allies. And who do they turn to for their allies? Well, of course, comes to Rhaenyra, as she's looking for alliances. And to be fair, he has given her great support in helping her get to the throne. So I do think it made sense for him to ask her, and he asks her to legitimize his name, his sons, because otherwise his bloodline will be gone. She doesn't do it though. And this is why I said I really like this episode, because that is a brutal decision, but it's it's a boss decision, right? Because by doing that, she is essentially making way for a potential competitor, right? So by saying no, she's still, because either way there would have been competition for the throne to her. So I think she made the better decision of, sorry, but I'm not gonna essentially give you a leg up on me, right? I think it was clever. I think she made the right decision here. I wouldn't have done it, but it is a brutal decision, and you do feel bad for Mysaria, because he's done a lot to help Rhaenyra, and I do think he's earned it, but I just understand from a tactical perspective why Rhaenyra said no, and it's nice to see Rhaenyra, as harsh as it is, to finally level up in this way, that she's making these decisions for her good rather than other people's good, which is what she seems to do too much, right? Will he go to the opposition now? As I said, I don't know. I think he could. I think, like I said, Team Green, they're not doing so hot at the moment. They could use some allies, and it would be a strong ally indeed. I mean, they just conquered the Battle of the Gullet, right? And Alicent doesn't, like, as I've said, she doesn't really seem to have much interest in the throne. I don't think she even has much interest in her family being on the throne. Maybe she teams up with Messiah. That would be interesting. That would be very interesting. And a big blindside to Rhaenyra, but it would she'd have it coming. He tried to go to her first, right? So, Ormond Hightower. This is like the last bit we'll talk about now. So he is also playing the game. So he seizes the city and holds the city hostage. Very clever move, I think. You know, so the reason he's taken the city hostage is because now Rhaenyra or Daemon, they can't just run in there and burn the city down, because they'd kill their own people. Of course, Daenerys, on the other hand, she wouldn't have had any problem with that. She would have been like, get me down there. I don't care. By season 8. What a character assassination she had, right? But yes, I think that was clever, but was it too bold of a move? Particularly for someone who's somewhat new to playing the game, right? Because he doesn't have the biggest entourage behind him, so what if they lose this? What are they going to do from there? That's interesting. I'll be interested to see if he's even still around by the end of the season. I feel like he's more of just the sort of red herring to throw in something new, and then maybe he'll die down the line. I can't remember. But it's interesting. I think he made a good move there. So, that is Game of Thrones so far. House of the Dragon Season 3, Episode 1 to 3. I've really enjoyed the season. I hope you guys have had as much of a good time watching it as I have as well. I think Game of Thrones is back. I think it's back. It's been a while, but I think it's doing really well. I'll be excited to see the Nielsen ratings and when they come in. I don't report on streaming numbers, unfortunately, in the LCM show. I stick to box office. But if you do want to see how House of the Dragon performs on Nielsen, you can always watch Grace Randolph's Movie Math, which is every Sunday or Monday, and she usually covers the Nielsen ratings there. But I'm really enjoying the show. I'll definitely continue to cover it. I'm not sure if it will be week to week or if I will do it in sort of these bunches like this, like maybe, because if I do it in these bunches of 3, in theory, there should be one more of this before the finale, right? And then we have a big discussion about the finale. So that's what I'm aiming for. So that is my breakdown of House of the Dragon Season 3 so far. A show that I'm really enjoying. I do believe Game of Thrones is back. I've really enjoyed it. I think it's got the twists, the politics, the drama, and the visuals. The visuals have been a big upgrade. What have you thought of it so far? Be sure to let me know down below. Be sure to like and subscribe for more content, and I'll see you next time. Bye.